I always believed sacrifice guaranteed security. If I worked harder than everyone else, my child would never have to suffer the way I did. For 18 years, I lived by that belief. Every extra hospital shift, every holiday I skipped, every pair of shoes I wore until the soles split, all of it fed into one silent promise I made to my daughter. Mia, you will never worry about your future. By the time she turned 18, that promise had a number attached to it, $199,000. I didn't brag about it. I didn't tell friends. That balance lived quietly inside a joint savings account I'd opened years ago with my mother. At 19, exhausted and terrified after giving birth, I trusted her when she said, "Put my name on it. If anything happens to you, I'll protect it for Mia." I believed her. Until one ordinary morning destroyed everything. I opened my banking app while drinking cold coffee at the kitchen table, and the screen didn't load right. I refreshed. Then again, the number stared back at me like a mistake. Balance, $0, no warning. No fraud alert. Just one clean transaction, $199,000 withdrawn. Authorized user, her name. My hands went numb as I drove to her house. Every mile replayed the years I'd spent building that fund. Nights Mia fell asleep on my lap while I studied bills. Mornings, I smiled through exhaustion because it would all be worth it. When I asked my mother where the money was, I expected denial, panic, something human. Instead, she laughed. "Relax," she said casually. "You helped pay for your sister's wedding." The words didn't register at first. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and it's a small ceremony. You and Mia aren't invited. You understand?" I smiled because I didn't trust myself not to scream. "I understand," I said. But the truth was, I understood everything in that moment. As I walked back to my car, my phone rang. My father's name flashed on the screen. When I answered, he didn't speak right away. He was crying. "I didn't think she'd really do it," he whispered. "She said she was moving family funds." "I didn't know she meant your money." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an impulse. It wasn't just about money. It was planned. And as I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, I realized something terrifying. The woman I trusted to protect my daughter's future had just erased it, and felt entitled to do so. But what my mother didn't know was this: I kept records. Every deposit, every email, and the moment she thought she'd won was the moment I stopped being her daughter and started becoming her biggest mistake. I sat in my car long after hanging up on my dad, staring at the quiet house where my mother still lived, if nothing had changed. The same curtains, the same porch light, the same woman inside, who had just erased 18 years of sacrifice without blinking. That was when the shock finally hardened into something colder. Anger didn't hit me like a wave, it settled into my bones. When I got home, Mia was in her room, headphones on, scrolling through college websites. She smiled when she saw me, completely unaware that her future had been quietly sold for flowers and table settings. I turned away before she could ask why my eyes were red. That night, I didn't sleep. I pulled every document I had ever saved. Bank statements, transfer confirmations, emails where I'd written phrases like Mia's education fund and college savings. At the time, I'd just been careful. Now, those records felt like armor. By dawn, one truth was impossible to ignore. My mother hadn't just taken advantage of a technicality. She had used my reliability against me. She'd assumed I would absorb the loss, figure something out, and stay quiet. Like I always had. Growing up, money had always been her weapon. She decided who deserved help and who needed tough love. My younger sister received bailouts disguised as support. I received lectures about independence. And still, I never imagined she would cross this line. The next day at work, I moved through my hospital shift like a ghost. My hands performed tasks my mind barely registered. All I could think about was how I would eventually have to sit across from my daughter and tell her the truth. That evening, Liam came over. He wasn't Mia's biological father, but he'd been present in every way that mattered. When he saw the papers spread across the table, he didn't interrupt, he listened. Every word, every detail. When I finished, he said one thing that shifted everything. "This isn't hopeless," I laughed bitterly. "She took everything." "No," he replied calmly. "She took money. But you have proof. Intent matters. And you didn't hide anything, you documented it." For the first time since the account hit zero, I felt a crack of light. We made a plan, not emotional, strategic. Step 1, organize evidence. Step 2, talk to the bank. Step 3. Speak to a lawyer. The word lawyer scared me. Suing my own mother felt unthinkable. But then Liam asked something that silenced every doubt. If someone else had done this to Mia, would you hesitate? That night, I texted my dad and asked him to tell me everything my mother had said about the account. His reply came minutes later. Whatever you decide, I'll support you this time. This time, I lay beside Mia as she slept, watching her steady breathing. Knowing one thing with absolute certainty, I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because staying silent would teach my daughter that love means letting people steal from you. And I refused to pass that lesson on. 2 days later, I walked into the bank that had held my savings for nearly 2 decades and learned something that changed the entire direction of this fight, and the danger my mother was actually in. Walking into the bank felt surreal. I'd been inside that building hundreds of times over the years, depositing checks, checking balances, trusting the system. Now it felt like enemy territory. Liam sat beside me, steady and silent, as I laid my folder on the desk between us, the branch manager. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply told the truth. This account was opened 18 years ago, I said evenly. It was intended for my daughter's education. I contributed nearly all the funds. Last week, my mother withdrew every dollar without informing me. The manager adjusted his glasses and gave the speech I'd expected. Legally, a joint account allows either party to withdraw funds. I understand that, I replied. But I want documentation. Who processed it? How it was done. And I want a written record stating the intent of the account and the source of the funds. That gave him pause. After several minutes of typing, he printed a report and slid it toward me. The withdrawal had been done in person. My mother had signed for it. No fraud flags. No hesitation. But then came the detail that made my stomach tighten. It was processed at this branch, he said. Same-day clearance, meaning she didn't hesitate. She walked in, prepared. I asked for a notarized summary of the transaction and contributor history. To my surprise, he agreed. Maybe it was the documentation. Maybe it was the amount. Or maybe he could see that this wasn't just a family argument. It was a disaster waiting to become public. That afternoon, we met with a lawyer named Sandra. She listened without interrupting, flipping through my documents with focused calm. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "Your mother may have had access, but intent matters. And so does misuse." I held my breath. If we can show this money was clearly earmarked for your daughter's education and used instead for luxury expenses, she continued, you may have grounds for restitution. What about criminal charges? I asked quietly. That depends, she said. If she misrepresented the purpose of the withdrawal, lied to bank staff, or worked with others to conceal the source, that changes things. Others. The word echoed in my head. Jason, my sister's fiancé, worked in finance. If he'd helped manage wedding payments, he might know more than he admitted. That realization shifted something from painful to dangerous. On the drive home, Liam broke the silence. People don't move that much money without help, he said. And vendors keep records. That evening, I called my dad again. This time, I asked pointed questions, dates, conversations, and excuses my mother used. His answers came slower now, heavier with guilt. She kept saying you weren't using the money, he admitted. That you'd figure something out, like you always do. Later that night, I sat Mia down and told her the truth. She didn't yell, she didn't cry at first. She just whispered, "Grandma took it." When I nodded, tears slid silently down her face. That moment erased any lingering doubt I had. This wasn't about family peace anymore. It was about accountability. And just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, an email from one wedding vendor landed in my inbox, a message that proved my mother had just stolen the money. She'd bragged about it. The email arrived late at night. At first, I almost ignored it, another invoice, another reminder of a wedding I wasn't invited to. But when I opened the attachment, my hands began to shake. It wasn't just a receipt. It was a forwarded message thread between my mother and the florist. In it, she'd written casually, almost proudly, "Don't worry about the price. My older daughter's college money is finally being used for something fun." I read it 3 times. Hoping I was misunderstanding it, I wasn't. Sandra called it gold. Evidence that stripped away any claim of confusion or misunderstanding. Intent, awareness, mockery. From that point on, everything moved faster. With the lawyer's guidance, we quietly collected records from vendors, a venue payment here, a catering deposit there. The timeline was undeniable. large wedding expenses appearing within days of my paychecks being deposited into the joint account. My mother hadn't just taken the money, she'd timed it. Meanwhile, the wedding grew closer. Photos flooded social media, floral previews, dress fittings, countdown posts. My sister glowed in every picture, blissfully unaware that her celebration was built on my daughter's future. Mia grew quieter with each passing day. One evening, I found her deleting college emails without opening them. When I asked why, she shrugged. "What's the point if we can't afford it?" That broke me. I promised her we were fighting. That even if we lost, we would not stop believing in her future. She nodded, but I could see doubt settling in where excitement used to live. Then my dad said something that made everything click. "She told the family you were being dramatic," he admitted, "that you were jealous. That you'd agreed to help and now regretted it." That was the narrative. I wasn't robbed, I was ungrateful. That's when I made the decision people still judge me for. I wasn't going to stay invisible. If my mother were comfortable celebrating in public, then the truth would meet her there. I told Sandra my plan. She warned me about risks, about emotions, about fallout. I accepted all of it. The wedding was the one place everyone involved would be in the same room. My mother, my sister, her fiancé extended family, and witnesses. Silence had protected her for years. Light wouldn't. On the morning of the wedding, I dressed simply. No drama. No accusations stitched into fabric. Just quiet resolve. As I slipped the folder of evidence into my bag, I felt strangely calm. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to tell the truth. And truth doesn't need permission. When I walked into the wedding reception that evening, uninvited and unseen, my mother smiled because she still thought she'd won. She had no idea she was about to lose everything she cared about most. The reception hall looked like something out of a dream. Soft lights hung from the trees. White linens covered every table. Guests laughed, glasses clinked, and music floated through the warm evening air. My mother moved through the room like royalty, accepting compliments for the perfect wedding. She didn't see me at first. I stood near the back with Liam and my dad, the folder heavy in my bag. When the DJ guessed to quiet down for speeches, I felt my heartbeat steady instead of racing. Fear had already burned itself out. When the microphone was offered for additional remarks, I stood. The shift in the room was immediate. Whispers rippled, heads turned. My mother's smile froze when she realized who was walking forward. "This isn't appropriate," she hissed as I reached the center. "It's exactly the right time," I replied calmly. I took the microphone and faced the room. "You've all been told this wedding was made possible by generosity. What you weren't told is where that generosity came from." I held up the first document, a clear, enlarged bank statement. "For 18 years, I saved money for my daughter's college education." Gasps spread across the room. I continued, laying out the timeline. Payments to vendors, the florist's email. My mother's words are printed in ink instead of hidden behind a charm. When I read her message aloud, the room went silent. My sister's fiancé stood slowly. "Is this true?" he asked her. "You used your granddaughter's college fund." My mother snapped back defensively. "She can take loans. This wedding only happens once." That was the moment everything turned. My dad stepped forward. "She's telling the truth," he said quietly. "That money was never meant for this." Judgment replaced celebration. The illusion cracked. "I've filed for restitution," I said, setting the final document on the table. "This isn't revenge, it's accountability." I handed the microphone back and walked out. Behind me, voices rose. Chairs scraped. The fairy lights still glowed, but the lie they'd been built on had collapsed. Outside, the night air felt clean. Mia hugged me tightly. "Even if we don't get it all back," she whispered, "I'm glad everyone knows." Weeks later, the settlement came through. My mother was forced to liquidate assets and repay the fund. A new account was opened. My name only, Mia, as sole beneficiary. No loopholes, no shared control. Standing on Mia's campus months later, watching her take in the future she nearly lost, I knew something had changed forever. I used to believe being a good daughter meant staying silent. Now I know being a good mother means speaking up even when your voice shakes. If protecting your child meant standing against your own parent, would you stay quiet? Or would you finally choose consequences over comfort? Thanks for watching the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon.